for those of you that aren't aware of Supermums already, we are an educational provider and community within the Salesforce ecosystem. We've been going for 8 years. We love sharing, training, learning, helping people in their careers. We run a series of training courses, and one of them is our Data Cloud course that is kicking off in July. So if Agentforce is on your agenda and you definitely need to learn Data Cloud as part and parcel of that, then we are an authorized Salesforce training provider, and you can learn Data Cloud with us. So Lynn will pop a link in the chat if you want to find out more about Data Cloud. But alongside Data Cloud, we also deliver the admin course, Marketing Cloud, CRM Analytics, consultancy skills, and we also have on-demand courses for Service Cloud and Platform App Builder. So please do talk to us about any training that you want to do. We also help people get job opportunities. So Abhinav, who's with us today, is actually looking for his next Agentforce or Salesforce opportunity. So we're representing him as a candidate. So please do talk to us if you're looking to hire or contract with a future prospect sort of Agentforce Data Cloud specialist. Abhinav will introduce himself and his background, and from his perspective, he's really going to share what he would do going into his next project. You know, what does that look like? What are the things he needs to think about? He's obviously learned a lot on his journey already in terms of being involved in projects where they're implementing Agentforce. Like, so there was a great case study of how. So I'm just going to check people are on mute. Just check they're on mute. That would be great. It's looking at sort of those use cases of where Salesforce is used, and the Capital one was showed at World Tour. It was really, really valuable, I think, to see how it happens in practice, because that helps bring it to life, the value that it can bring to an organization. So Abhinav is going to be sharing his experiences of what, you know, if he was tackling this, how he would move forward in a project, you know, all those different things you need to think about on this type of project. And then Chris Taylor is joining us from Nebula Consulting. Nebula Consulting are one of our partners at Supermums. We'd highly recommend them as a Salesforce implementation partner if you're looking for support with your Salesforce system. And Chris is been their lead on Agentforce as well. So I'm sure that Chris will be sharing different use cases with you and his experience of actually working hands-on with Agentforce. I think we're all aware that Agentforce as a product is continually in evolution as a product in its own right, as well as also the pricing that goes with it is continually evolving. You know, Salesforce is truly an agile organization, as many tech industries and products are. So I think a lot of, you know, the learning, the experiences, the feedback, you know, they're acting on that and still building. And I think it's really important as professionals working in this space that we take time to learn and think about, one, you know, how is it valuable, what's the business case, but two, how would we even tackle this in practice, right? Because we get the nice glossy presentations, but the nuts and bolts of actually how does this work in practice is what's valuable about these masterclasses. You know, let's really get under the skin of thinking about what would be that step-by-step process if we were to make it happen, because you know, we see the big vision, but it's the steps to get there, which is what we wanted to cover today in this session. So Abhinav, I'll hand over to you at this point to share more about yourself and the tips you'd like to share with everybody today. So I'll stop sharing my screen and you can take over.
Sure, sounds good. And welcome all. Thank you for inviting me to this lovely session with fellow Salesforce journey trailblazers, as I call them. All of us are learning constantly with Salesforce. So, yeah, I'm Abhinav. I have been doing Salesforce and Salesforce only for the past 20 years, and have an extensive background working with the different clouds. Started more from the test management point, became more of a Salesforce consultant, but now I'm a digital transformation program manager, and I've been running digital transformation, ERP, multi-cloud transformation programs for the past 9 years, I would say so. And my expertise lies in I think bringing programs which are failing or having, you know, a kind of, I would say, issues with delivery and other things back on track, and making sure that they can be delivered with the time and scope. So currently at Capita in a slightly different role, we were on our journey to implement Agentforce around 6 months ago. At that point, currently Salesforce has just now announced Agentforce 3.0, but we were using Agentforce 2.0 as Agentforce 3.0 is quite new. So the way we went about it, we did a bit of a POC, like a kind of a readiness thing, trying to see the high volume use cases, identify the high value places where Agentforce would be much more useful for us, and more around case triage and lead qualification, because that's where our majority of our work lies. And we found out this is where we want to invest our time and energy. So we have a implementation of data cloud as well, so it was quite it made very good sense that we went with the Agentforce. So we have Salesforce as our partner as well. We got them to do the knowledge we needed from them in terms of Salesforce providing support and other things, the basic setup, the demos and the org and everything. And then we went into more of a readiness. From readiness, we went into the pilot build. We enabled Agentforce in setup. That we did AI agents, we did add topics and instructions, actions, implementation, authentication, and many things which we could identify. We had some gaps in our flow and Apex, so we had to fix those things as well. And slowly we went into a controlled launch, where we did first a 10 people power users launch to see how it worked for our for 10 users, and then brought analytics crowd into it. Many things around the security review had to be done to make sure, because Agentforce is still very new, so you have to make sure that you do a proper security review, and make sure that the data is properly utilized in that way. And we went into more of looking into our Slack and Tableau as well. Slack is partially reused, I would say not so heavily used, but Slack is very heavily integrated, as everybody knows. And MuleSoft was also our middle layer, so it went into multiple code reviews and other things, and that's how we went into from control week into a proper launch with our Agentforce. Now, some of the key things I would say, which I have identified, and I was not very architecturally involved, as I can, because I was more from the management side, from the scope side, from looking into the aspects of how this would be working and what can be done around data integrity and how the use cases can be more justified. What we found was that the product still has a bit of a hallucination aspect, and this is true for most of the generative AI that is present right now in the be it Claude and be it other agents which you or Perplexity and others which you might have used, that there is an element of hallucination. So if you put not the right kind of data, like we call it garbage in, then it starts to hallucinate a bit. And so what is most critical is to map your objects to data cloud first, so that Agentforce starts to seamlessly integrate well, and the language between data cloud and Agentforce, you can utilize the params and the other things to pass on the detailed knowledge and get the right output. Other thing you have to look into is more on security and compliance, I would say, because it has low level parameters and other things which have to be looked into. You have to use variable filters. You have to run your penetration test to make sure the agents are, the APIs are secure and everything around that. And a lot of things have to be looked into from data cloud side as well, that your data cloud is completely having the right level of data. As Salesforce in themselves say that Agentforce is 60% effective at the moment if the data is of a good quality. If the data cloud or the data which is being fed for the agents to respond through Agentforce basically has not got the right level of data, then the accuracy of the responses from Agentforce is up to 60% only. And this is official Salesforce figures basically. There was a clear case of finding for us that, versioning wise, how do we go about it and make sure that how the metadata will be deployed, and that's through JSON. Basically, we had a gate and everything around that. So from a a department's point of view, we created co-pilots, made sure that some co-pilots were specifically for case generation and case lead generation side, and some were others were most around our other clouds like Experience Cloud and other things, which we are looking at use cases still to see how we can utilize Agentforce better. So it's been an ongoing discovery slash implementation kind of an experience which we have encountered. There are many marketplaces now which help you also do this much faster as well, and it's worth exploring. Salesforce also says that these third party marketplaces can actually, if you have a specific use case, for example, of health industry or something, then you can get some help through those things as well. And uh, yeah, that's how I would summarize it. In one important point is that Agentforce has now started to support the different prompting techniques like markdown prompting and other things. But what we found out was so not so effective. Like for example, you can't add images and other things which are still text based, and you cannot do formatting of text so easily as well. Also, it works differently if you are trying to use it for emails and SMS or WhatsApp to respond, for example, and or it's a different response on uh, email. So I would say that the lockdown structure around this is still, is being built, I think, by Salesforce, and there are many use cases still being looked into how it can work. I mean, I find Sockwell very, easier to use in that regard, that you can do queries and pick up objects and do things. But with Agentforce, you have to know which your custom objects are to directly reference it, because in the background it is it's the Salesforce objects that's talking to the Agentforce through the Agentforce Studio, and then the responses are coming based on what your questions are asking. And one good development that I saw recently at Agentforce conference, which I attended in London Excel Arena, was that Salesforce is now bringing a dedicated Salesforce Studio, which will be released very soon. In the summer release, they are bringing it, and that would be having a lot of controls on automating admin tasks, for example. So doing permission sets, cloning permission sets, deleting permissions, and org-wide default settings and other things can be handled very, very easily with Salesforce Studio. So it's quite an exciting time, I would say, for people who are on the Salesforce journey, who are trying to make a good use case of these new developments that are coming from Salesforce. Obviously, this Agentforce Builder is very useful, but now with it becoming more UI based, I would say, with the Salesforce Studio integration and other things, that's going to make this whole ramping up time of learning Agentforce or onboarding Agentforce on your journey much more useful and easier to work with, basically.
Brilliant, thank you. A couple of questions, and actually this is probably similar to actually the question that just came up from Orlando. You mentioned like you were using Agentforce 2.0, then there's 3.0, and Orlando's about 4.0. Can you easily upgrade between those and harness the different features, or what implications does that have?
I mean, Salesforce obviously will charge you a bit of a premium to from moving from one release to another. In terms of licensing, they are changing their pricing from what we have been told. All the prices are changing per user from 1250, I believe, to 15 USD per user or something like that. That's the announcement. So if you want to go to the latest versions, you will have to pay a bit of a premium. So, but Salesforce is saying that they will provide all support. They will help you do the things as well with the full time. I mean, depending on what kind of support you've obviously taken from Salesforce, but we had Premier support, so they are supporting us in doing those kind of things. I have not not heard about the Agentforce 4.0 yet. So that's news for me because 3.0 was just announced 2 days ago or something like
Oh,
that.
okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's interesting because with Salesforce, they do releases every three times a year, right? We don't pay extra for that. It's part and parcel. So it's interesting that you're saying that they're charging for the upgrade around that. Another question for you then from my side. Well, I was chatting to another person yesterday about this, and they said, they've been building agents for quite a while, and he said, the key skill set you need in a team is really good BAs, and also BAs that are trained in Lean Six Sigma, because it's all about that efficiency, time saving. What team have you found? Obviously, you've been managing a team. What's been your essential team to get this up and running? What are the people you've needed in the room?
I would say a solution architect is definitely needed
Mhm.
because they help you look into data from various angles and make a good data model. First of all, it's important to have a very good data model, and that's a very key element of this.
Mhm.
And obviously, BAs are needed. So I can share some more examples on this because I have completed a fellowship in AI generative and agentic as well, and I've used a lot of other tools that are present in the market as well, like make.com, Zapier, and A10 and other things to do
Mm.
build. I run my own consulting company as well, so I do some consultations based on that as well. I'm trying to help some businesses who have reached out to us for AI to help them use these different other tools as well. So definitely having a good Python builder is important in the team. I personally feel because if you want to understand the integrities of everything, it's very important to understand how basically this all works. So Agentforce works on the Atlas reasoning engine, right? And it integrates very well with Slack and Tableau and MuleSoft and so many other products. And the agent builder tools which started arriving around January 2025 and other things, you would ideally not need very too much of Python, but I said if you have a background in Python, then it helps basically to understand how to build agents. Be it Salesforce or non-Salesforce, any. And at the same time, it also helps to understand the errors that are coming basically, because with Agentforce, it's a lot of trial and error at the moment that you would tweak it. For example, we were trying to do this for a hospitality industry example. I'll take a particular big chain of restaurants reached out to us, and they were looking to automate their booking menus and everything around that. They wanted Agentforce to go and update their menu whenever they were changing a dish or a price on a dish. So we did a lot of work around first of all creating a custom prompt, another thing, sending that information. But what we were finding was it was updating some of the menus, but not the say a la carte or something like that. It was updating other menus, but not the la carte. So we had to go into the params and see what was missing, and then connect those objects, and again make sure that everything was very detailed in the prompts. So Agentforce is just like any other AI. The more detailed prompt you give, the more details you give, the more better results you start to get out of it. If your querying is very vague, or you have not given the exact objects in the clear way, then it does not give the intended result. So this was the key findings, I would say. So yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it's interesting. I think, you've got the BAs on the ground. There's lots of, when you say the data, all the questions that people could ask and the
That
scenarios, right? There's, that blows your mind. It's kind of like all these different scenarios you've got to think and where that data is going to be pulled from. You can see why the importance of BAs is so important.
And just to add to that, Heather, sorry, because you've reminded me of something. So I recall around 2016-17 when Salesforce was quite new in their Service Cloud implementation, and they brought knowledge component. Now, knowledge component at that time was a very new concept because FAQs and other things, which is a standard practice for any business, needed to be automated through knowledge articles, and then agents could reference or just copy a direct link while replying to an email or a message to a customer using knowledge articles. It was at that time also, we found out, and I was working with a luxury brand called Yux Net-a-Porter, and we found out that as detailed knowledge articles we could create, we were able to cater to many cases and many more examples related to it. Otherwise, if you had like 7 8 basic FAQs, you were not able to give the right answers to the queries that people were asking. And at that time, uh, I would take that same use case and say that Agentforce has just automated it fully. That's what it has done exactly. The knowledge article part and the other things are now fully automated, and you can get a direct response through AI. But again, the point is how comprehensively you have worked on that and built your FAQs or your use cases, and for that purpose, you definitely need a good BA or a couple of BAs to first of all identify those use cases, look at the volume, what are the level of transactions that are happening on those particular use cases to make sure why you need Agentforce, because it's an investment, it's a price, right? Do you really need it if you don't have the volumes? And then build from there, okay, a detailed knowledge base and other things, and how you would be automating things around it.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, brilliant. We've got another couple of questions. Anita says, how do we manage testing the Agentforce in the sandbox with limited data during its implementation?
Yeah, good question. And it is, so Agentforce provides its own UI with which you can run some use cases and test cases inside, and it gives a pass and failed result as per that as well. So, I mean, the way they have built it, it's got its own QA tool inside. It's even got a bit of a test management capability. I would say that you can create a test suite and run like unit tests and other things on particular use cases, and see the results. But from my own experience, I have seen a 60 to 30, again coming to that, back to that Salesforce figure only, that if you are running say 10 test cases, at least 3 or 4 will fail in the first instance, and you have to keep on doing many iterations, keep on reforming the params and other things around it to get to 70-80% accuracy if you can achieve that. Yeah.
Interesting. Orlando says, do we need to pay for testing Agentforce in sandboxes?
It's part of the Agentforce builder currently. It's, I mean, licensing wise, it's Salesforce gives that in the Agentforce builder once you buy it. Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. Another question for Orlando. What about the calculation of ROI implementing Agentforce for a client? Have you been able to do that on your projects for any of your agents?
Yes, to some extent, that was part of our initial study, because we had a massive team who were using, who were physical agents who were replying to our queries and other things. So, from a cost saving basis and ROI and other things, I think we will be able to get to a good, profitable point by the end of first year. As I said, still initial stages, and it's been 3 months since we rolled the product on and other things related to it. So it takes minimum 7 to 8 months to get to a working model and getting some ROI. At the moment, we are on a 50-50 basis, where we are using Agentforce, but we have not completely got rid of our full service team. We have still got a 50% service manual physical team to make sure they are also there to reply to things and also check on what Agentforce is replying, to make sure that if the response are not accurate enough, that they can step in and come back and do a manual intervention. But by the end of first year, I think we will be able to go to 80 to 90%.
Fabulous. Well, it'd be interesting to see, obviously how it responds and how accurate it's being. Have you found that? Is it, is it answering as you expect?
Yeah. As I said, the product is getting better, as is AI getting better. I mean, every day we keep seeing new models coming, new details coming from different companies. So AI is maturing, and we are going towards AGI now, as everybody's aware of, which is the next step in this whole evolution process, basically. What I feel is that the level of hallucination is still high, I would say. So if your queries are vague, if your data is not up to the mark, you will see this is not what you intended to use, and you'll start getting a bit of frustration. So it's time to go back to the drawing board and look into your use cases and refine your data, make sure the data is as correct and as usable as possible. At the same time, having a very clear Salesforce org. If you have multiple sets of custom objects or custom fields with the similar kind of naming convention and other things, then it can get confused while interfacing to objects and other things. So having that standard best practices is always very useful, I would say. So yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. One final question for you, and then I'll let Chris answer perhaps some of these other questions, and you can feel free, Abhinav, to put any answers in the chat. I want to give Chris his slot as well. We got I think it's a good sort of question just to finish on. What are the biggest lessons learned, both your wins and challenges? Like, stepping into your next new role, like what would you walk away with and say, that was brilliant and that was a bit of a challenge?
I think working with Salesforce is always good. They have very knowledgeable consultants and very good people to support you in your journey. So that's always I would say, the rewarding part of this. And even during this journey, we met some very good consultants and people who had very good experience on this. And there was a lot of learning. So definitely very rewarding in that way, because this is the future. I mean, nobody can escape it now, where the service industry is going to have a drastic change in the ways of working, and Agentforce and similar agent would be the new ways of working, basically. So yeah, definitely lots of things to learn from a learning point of view, very rewarding. But as I said, I think Salesforce also realizes this. That's why they are bringing so many releases so quickly, that they have also got a lot of user feedback. The initial feedback for Agentforce 1.0 was not so great, and they worked very quickly to bring up if Agentforce 2.0, and within 6 months they've brought down now Agentforce 3.0, which I am hoping would be a step up. So lessons learned would be that technology is always evolving. You need to keep yourself very updated. Make sure that your team is constantly into some kind of a learning or a training program, so that you're ramping their knowledge up as well, so they are much more efficient, which is what we realized, and we started doing it as well a lot more. And what I personally feel is that in any technology that is new and evolving, you have to take it with the caveat that it's not going to work in the first instance fully, and we were fully aware of that as well. But we had very specific use cases. We wanted to get an outcome of 70%, 60% efficiency to save some cost, and I think we have managed to achieve that, and that's what is a big win for us. Yeah.
Fabulous, thank you. Abhinav, I'll let you answer any of the questions in the chat, and Chris obviously can tackle some.
I don't want to take this steal Chris's thunder. I think still Chris is a far more technical consultant than me, and I think he should answer some of these.
No worries at all. Well, you've got loads of experience and loads of value. So as I mentioned, for those that joined a little bit later, Abhinav's looking for his next opportunity. We're representing him as a candidate at Supermums. So if you're interested in working with him and having him on your team with all his extensive knowledge, I was really interested also, I think, that the course that you did, Abhinav, if you can put that in the chat, that'd be really interesting to have a look at. I think, being at the forefront of this at the moment, like you say, it's where everybody's going, is really interested. So if you're interested in working with Abhinav, please do have a chat with us at Supermums, and we can certainly put him forward for any roles that you've got. So Chris, I'll hand over to you. I'll change the spotlight, but thank you again, Abhinav. Really, really interesting stuff.
It was a pleasure to interact with you guys and share my experiences. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time. Chris, welcome. So Chris is from Nebula Consulting, one of our partners at Supermums. Chris, I'll hand over to you. Do you want to share about your experience and your background, and share your top tips with everybody?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I've also got some slides that can go underneath what I'm talking at to visualize some of those conversations. So bear with me a second as I get that up and running. And hopefully you should be able to see my screen now.
Wonderful. Yeah, all good. Thank you.
So yeah, hello, and yeah, thank you for the team at Supermums for inviting me to do this session, and Abhinav, thank you for sharing your knowledge so far. So my name's Chris. I'm currently working at Nebula as a principal consultant. I've been in the Salesforce space for just over 12 years. My current role is focused in AI and Agentforce at Nebula, so I lead our AI team. As part of that, I've completed 4 Agentforce projects now, and we've got 3 projects on the go. So this is a mixture of customer stuff as well as stuff that we've done internally. And what I wanted to share with you today is around our internal agent that we built and some of the highlights and things that worked with that and lessons learned from that, and then how we've utilized that to then start working with customers a bit more, and the work that we've been doing around that. But yeah, so as I said, I've been working with Agentforce since it came out last year. We jumped onto that very quickly because we realized that this was something that was going to be big. And obviously part of that, getting all the certs that you can get and all the trailhead badges and stuff like that, that are possible. So all of that learning has come together. So first of all, what I'm going to do is introduce you to Nebbot. So Nebbot is our agent. At Nebula, we have a bit of a habit of chucking the word neb in front of tools that we use internally, and hence the reason why we came up with the name Nebbot. But Nebbot is an agent that is currently live for our employees. We built it back in March, so it's been up and running since March for our employees, and it's still being used at the moment. We started off with some initial features, and we've also got some roadmap of where we want to take that. And the aim of the Nebbot project was really around education internally, getting people upskilled, getting us hands-on, practical before we jumped out into customers' situations. Obviously, with being such a new product from Salesforce, it's very difficult to have lots and lots of skills and knowledge on the product because no one has them, not even people at Salesforce. So the only way to do that is to get hands-on, and we wanted, a bit like how Salesforce have been, we wanted to be our own customer zero, and focus on that. So initially we connected that to, we wanted to focus on our internal knowledge base, which is currently sits on Confluence, and that is known as NebNet. Notice the trend. And with NebNet, it's a tool that has a lot of really valuable information in it, and lots of people like to put things in there, but it's not the most utilized of tools. So you quite often get asked questions of internal systems or policies or processes, and a lot of the answers would be go on to NebNet, it's on NebNet, go and have a look. And we wanted to reduce that friction. One of the areas on there on NebNet was around how we do holidays, so what you're entitled to for your annual leave allowance. But we actually manage all of our annual leave inside Salesforce. So we can answer questions in Salesforce on how many days do you have this year, how many have you booked, how many have you taken, how many have you got remaining. So we initially started off with questions around that, and then started moving into allowing our agent to actually book those holidays for you on your behalf. We've currently got some in-flight initiatives on the go. So we're going to be looking at advising team scheduling based on skills and knowledge for different projects. We're also looking at providing support for those projects. So things like generating weekly reports, generating potential risks, highlighting those types of things to really streamline those processes. And we're also looking at account planning. So looking at customers, helping us do research on customers and the industries they sit within. So all of these things can add up, but that doesn't mean that everything went as we wanted it to go through first immediately. So a few of the things that we learned from that, from our initiation of Nebbot were initially around the product. As I've mentioned, the product is moving at a really fast pace. The Agentforce has its own release cycle outside of the core 3 releases that Salesforce does every year. And that means that just because you couldn't do something yesterday doesn't mean you can't do it today. And within this project, there was a clear example of that. We'd started building something, we were trying to get something to work, we were building something, we were really struggling, and then we stumbled across a feature that did it for us. We didn't know it existed. And this has happened more than once within the product as well. I've even sat in a workshop with Salesforce, and a Salesforce employee said, "What's that?" And I was like, "I don't know, I've never seen that before." before, and it was a new feature that had been rolled out the day before. So it's moving really, really fast. So it's really important to understand what capabilities you want to get out of it and how you can get that done, because there might be an out-of-the-box solution that you can use there. The second thing that we looked at really was around expectations from the team. So the team was really keen to get using the agent. However, most of the feedback of things that were broken were actually were expectations. They're not limitations in what we'd built. We'd expected that. When we initially built our agent, we were only using a subset of our knowledge base because the data quality in certain parts of it were out of date. They needed updating. There needed to be things removed. So because of that, we only did a part of that knowledge base with a plan of releasing in a later phase the rest of it. And a lot of the questions were, I asked this question and it couldn't give me the answer. And it's because they were asking questions in that part that wasn't in the system at the moment. And although we had communicated that, the expectations from users was that they'd be able to do whatever they wanted and ask whatever they wanted. And a clear thing for that was in the first iteration, you could only ask those questions around your holiday allowance. You couldn't book them. And the number one requested feature was, I tried to book it. Why can't I book my holiday now? It's not letting me book it, which we realized very quickly. And that was the next phase that came out shortly afterwards. We also quickly realized that our agent was operating independently without whatever else was going on in the business. So although at Nebula we are a small business in size, we realized that we do actually need a strategy in place. So we need to build something that will support us and understand why we're using AI and what are we trying to achieve out of that. So we are in the process, in the final stages of working on our AI strategy within the business, which helps guide those principles of what types of tools can we use, why are we using them, how are we going to achieve that, what's our roadmap going to look like. And that just helps guide us in a way that previously we were just like, should we do this? Should we do that? And there's no wrong or reason why we would do that. We also looked at how we build things. So one of the things that I would say is from our perspective, the building process is actually the quickest part of the agent process. So unlike a lot of other things, there are some features in Agentforce that you can actually build as quick as Salesforce say you can build it. So the longest part of the projects really are understanding that you're building the right thing and then making sure that it works correctly, not the actual build process itself. And finally, we also realized that a lot of people were struggling with AI terminology. So AI has come along, and within that, they come loads of new words and phrases that people aren't sure about. And we had to break things down, talk about the agents in a certain way so that everyone understood, and making sure that non-technical people didn't get left behind. So within that, I would say that the three key areas for success that we've identified are looking at that initial process. So when you're thinking about agents, think about the business challenges you have, how easy it might be for AI to solve it, and don't just build, because if you build, things are likely to go wrong. There's great risk attached to that. You'll probably get low adoption. AI is about driving business value, but you need to understand how are you going to get that business value before you start building that. The other thing to do after that is also that preparation phase. It's really key that you design and plan what you're going to do. That will give you an understanding of, do you have the right data in place? Do you have the right processes? Do you have the right skills in your team to be able to achieve this? Because if you don't, either the agent isn't going to work properly, or you're just physically not going to be able to get it to work at all. And finally is around monitoring what's going on. So once you've gone live, seeking feedback, check that people are actually using the tools. Agentforce gives you some of those capabilities to do out of the box, and look at what are those common use cases, what are the things people are using it most for. At the beginning of your project, set out KPIs on what you're trying to achieve. Why are you trying to do that? If you don't know why, it's the wrong thing that you're trying to build, because there should be a problem you're trying to solve. And because there's a problem, you should be able to say, I'm trying to do X because I want to reduce this by X%, for example. Now, one thing you may notice is I've given 3 key steps and not a single one is talking about actually building an agent. It's not about the building and configuring, because as I mentioned, that part is generally the easiest part of the project. If you get these other steps right, everything else falls into place. So after our first couple of agents that we did around training, around internally, and start working with a customer that we've worked with for years and is very happy for us to help and experiment with them a little bit, we developed a bit of a framework that we worked within that we call our Agentforce development lifecycle. So you might have seen a diagram similar to this before, where we're talking about lifecycle and how that goes round. But we feel that there's 8 key parts to that life cycle. I'm going to cover the first few in a bit more detail because I think these ones are critical. But one thing you will notice is a lot of the conversations with Salesforce, a lot of the demos and things like that, focus on point 5 and point 7, which is building it and going live. They're not talking about, are you building the right thing? Can you do that? What are you trying to achieve? So it's really important that we found, and since we've implemented this methodology with customers, we've found that the quality of agents is actually improved and the conversation is improved, and we've managed to bring people along for that journey for the better. So if we start off with that ideation phase, within AI, it's really easy to come up with lots of use cases. And if you're not sure, you can do what lots of people do, which is use AI to come up with AI use cases. Go to ChatGPT or Gemini or something and say, I'm trying to do this. What could you suggest? And it will come in there. But really, it's important to focus on what drives your business and what you're trying to get out of this. So some of the questions that I start asking people initially are around, if you had an unlimited budget, who would you hire? There are so many jobs in a business that you would say, oh, I'd love to have this person, but we can't afford that. Or we used to have this person in the team and they used to fix this and do this. But what was if you had that unlimited budget? What would you actually do? What would the role be? What would they be supporting? And could AI do something similar? Look at what tasks does your team do? Is it a repetitive thing? Is it done regularly? These are great use cases for AI. They might be automation, so it's worth validating that not everything is AI. It's really important to get these the right way round in terms of when you're coming up with ideas. You might go, actually, no, that's Apex, that's Flow, rather than that's an AI agent. Also look for the gaps that you have in your business processes. Quite often when we do workshopping with customers and we do customer journey mapping, we identify parts of the system and parts of the business process where we go, well, what happens here? Why is there like a gap in what you're doing? Or there might be bottlenecks, for example, if everything slows down at this point. Why is that? And what can we do to aid things and to keep that path as smooth as possible? And they also look at activities that take up lots of time for multiple people. We've had this internally. So for example, we might get a request for a proposal. And in the past, a lot of that would be lots of senior people sitting around trying to figure out what the answers to lots of these questions are. And those things are really time consuming, but it's taking away highly skilled people from their day job to do that. What happens if an agent could help you get there and do a draft state for you and get you up and running with that? Also, what are your current business pain points? So what are you trying to solve? Are there any things that are stopping you achieving your goals for the year and things like that? These are things that you want to then try and focus on. And finally, where does the most negative feedback come from? And that's both from your customers and from your employees. You might be losing customers or employees because of these problems. And you could be losing customers because of negative employee experiences. Because as I always say, happy employees equals happy customers. So you want to make sure that you're going on there. And I think one thing that's really key that I think a lot of people struggle with, and particularly because this type of functionality has come out of the service side of things, is that agents can actually fit within the entire life cycle of your business, from within marketing to help you generate content and review that type of stuff before people even know that you're a customer, all the way to supporting people. So it fits across various Salesforce products, from sales, service, marketing, analytics. There's lots of different use cases across that journey, and it's about finding those use cases. So once you've gone through that, you're then going to have a bunch of ideas. But the next important phase within that is to prioritize them. So as I mentioned before, you might come up with loads of ideas, but they might not necessarily be the right thing. So many people are familiar with an Eisenhower matrix, where you normally have four boxes, and you pin them based on how much value they're going to bring and how much effort they're going to bring. What I've found and a lesson learned within this is really very much that people concentrate so much on where the dot within that box is going to go, to how far into the top right corner things are going to go, to focus on that, and they're not actually focusing on the true thing, and that really slows them down. So what we work with is more of a 3x3 grid, and the purpose of that is you just chuck something in a box. And you want to then, once you've done that, and this is not just agents, but this is processes that agents do. So focusing on that and then placing them in there. And that top right corner is the things that you want to pick off first, because they're the ones that are going to get you to show value very quickly. The stuff in the bottom left, just completely ignore. They might be automation requirements rather than AI requirements. And what's also important within this is there are different levels of maturity within this. So you might come up with an idea or a suggestion, but you could actually break that down into different scales. So we look at it from a propulsion method. So if I gave someone a piece of paper, generally you can build a paper plane. Doesn't matter whether you did a very good job, you can throw it across the room, it's going to glide at some extent. And the same is true with Agentforce. With foundations, you can get an agent up and running for free really quickly. However, does it actually add any value to your business? So as a business, you want to be able to differentiate yourself. So you want to start moving. So that propel phase is really about growing those capabilities, automating those processes, figuring out what you can do, experimenting with those different things before you get to that cruise stage. So like a plane, it gets up to the optimum altitude and it's just steadily cruising along. And in this instance, we're talking about how AI has become second nature. People are using it on a regular basis without even realizing they're doing it, because it's just there. But really, you want to start pushing it to say, what can I be doing? What's going to make me different within that? Now, the important thing to think about is in those final stages, you might not actually have the technology with you. Don't curb your imagination to the technology, because as we said, the technology is trying to catch up. You've got the Agentforce 3.0 coming out at the moment. That's like the 4th version of Agentforce. I'm sure before Dreamforce there's going to be another announcement of another version of Agentforce that can do other things. It is coming out really quickly. So put that on your roadmap and say, this is where we want to get to, but it's going to take us a while. It might take 6 months, 12 months, 3 years, but at least you know where you're wanting to go. And then the final one that I'm going to go to in detail is around that design phase. So designing is important in 2 aspects. One is the business side of things. So as I was talking about, BAs are really important. One thing that I mentioned earlier was around how AI terminology is really making people struggle with things. And I know Salesforce like to use the phrase digital labor. I'm not a massive fan of that term. I prefer using something like digital colleagues, because I'm here talking about how we can support people, make their lives easier, make their capabilities stronger and better. And working from that way. So to aid these conversations, the way that we've been approaching this is to convert it into more of a business requirement more than a technology requirement. So thinking about that question we had before of, if you had an unlimited budget, who would you hire? It's a lot easier for someone that's senior in the business to say, or I would hire this employee and this is the job description that I would give them, and these are the things I would expect them to do, and these are the goals that I would set them and the KPIs I would set. And when we onboard them, these are the systems that we would have, and this is the access to the data that they would need. So for example, it could be they need access to Salesforce, but in Salesforce they only need Sales Cloud, and inside Sales Cloud they only need a salesperson profile. A lot of businesses understand that, but once you've got that, they actually make up all the components of what you need for an agent. They've got your goals, what you're trying to achieve, the jobs to be done, which are your different topics that you're going to build out, the access requirements, which help you with that prepare phase. So by drawing out these requirements, it really helps non-technical people wrap their heads around the AI capabilities. Once you've done that, then you need to do the technical design. And the technical design is actually putting down on paper how you're going to build this. I'd highly recommend Elements Cloud for this. They've built a really fantastic tool, and we're using it internally. And they've just recently made it free as well. So within that, you can actually draw out your process, and it can then write what you've written as instructions that you can then feed your agent. But understanding what you need to build and how you're going to build it will understand what you need to do, what are those things that you need to prepare for, etc. So, as I said, although we've only covered 3 parts and it might feel like a very long-winded process, we've actually found that this process doesn't have to be too long. This can actually speed up a project, because by understanding what you're trying to achieve, you actually build a quality agent the first time. Salesforce have said that over 80% of agents that are built do not make it into production, which is a huge number. So it's really important and to do this. And part of the reason for that is people are just building without thinking. So it's really about finding what you want to build and how you're going to build it. Because once you've done that, you can then prepare that data, then you can start the building, you can do that testing, go through those cycles of optimizing and things like that, then go live with it. Monitor to see if people are actually using it. If they are using it, which features are they using more, and then start that cycle again. Go back to the ideation phase. It might be you add to your agent. It might be that you are building in different ways. But this has really helped, and it's a big lesson learned around slowing down and thinking in the same way that we would do with other Salesforce projects, and not getting caught up on the hype of agents. One of the things that we have done within that, we've got our own hub of resources. So you can, with the QR code, we call it our Agentforce hub. And that has use cases. We've got terminologies on there, questions that our customers frequently ask us, and links to other resources that we've found helpful, and our customers have found helpful as well. So yeah, thank you. And I can go through some questions in the last few minutes that we have, if you've got any.
Thank you so much, Chris. That was really informative. I loved how you started with your own organisation. It's a great way to pilot it and get feedback from it, and start to build it out there. It makes absolute sense to start small. So let's have a look at some of the questions. Any questions for Chris that have come through? Which versions have you used, Chris, so far, from the Agentforce 2 to 3 to this point?
So 3 is sort of out at the moment. I think it's more about features and functionality that come out. So when we first started, the first agent we built was on 1, or just Agentforce back then. But I think it's more about switching on the capabilities that they offer you. But as I said, some of those things come out daily. I've seen stuff where I've logged in one day and there's a screen has completely changed.
So how do you keep pace with that? My next question, how do you keep pace with the technology and learning it? Is there resources, notifications?
Learning it is on the go. I think a lot of it is just trying to keep as hands-on as possible within that. So as I mentioned, I lead our AI team at Nebula. So we've gathered a group of consultants together. So it's a mixed set of functional and technical consultants and developers. And we're having a weekly meeting. And part of that is we're talking about, I think one thing that's really important is not just to focus on Agentforce. AI is an important topic. To come out with some of these ideas, you actually need to understand AI before you can understand Agentforce. So the one thing that we've been really focusing on is getting people to use AI in their day-to-day life, and talking about how they've used AI at home and at work in the past week. So that could be helping me plan a trip to the beach, which is something that I did using Gemini to say, I want to find the hottest beach. I want it to be a sandy beach. I want it to be this far away from my house, and getting it to write all of that stuff for me. Those types of things then help you relate that to business context. So once you start doing that type of stuff, you start reading more news articles and trying to keep up with other stuff that's coming out of Salesforce. But yeah, apart from that, keeping up with the Salesforce piece is really just keep logging in every week and trying to build stuff and keeping on top of the trailhead stuff as well.
It moves so quick now, doesn't it? But I think also the fact that you've got a focused team on it, that you're in it, you can't be half-hearted about this, can you? You kind of got to be like fully invested, and like that's what you're learning by the sounds of it.
Yeah, no, you have to fully commit. And I think the struggle that a lot of businesses are having is that a lot of senior people in businesses don't understand technology, but they've been told to do AI. What that means could mean absolutely anything, but they're then pushing that downwards to go, we need to do AI, and try and rush that out. So it's trying to convert that into actual things that will benefit the business. But you can get some really quick use cases out. So our internal agent was from design to go live was less than 2 weeks that we did that with him. And it was a week between phase 1 and phase 2. The other phases have been longer because we wanted to monitor and maintain it. Yeah, you can build stuff really quickly. And these projects seem to be going a lot quicker than we anticipated originally as well.
Interesting. Well, that's good. Well, thank you, Chris, and thank you, Abhinav. I think what's really important is if you want a consultancy partner that's in it every day and learning it, that's going to help you speed up your success. So, Chris, really thorough presentation and great sort of, that structured approach to everything, really useful, and that's absolutely what you want to expect from working with a consultancy. But I think equally important is you have the team in-house monitoring and supporting in-house as well. So I think Abhinav, you obviously represented that and the thought process, and obviously a team to maintain it and manage it is really important. I think the other thing that you've both sort of highlighted is the level of depth and understanding of AI and how you've got to create an AI strategy and invest time in executing on this, which is where Lynn and I, obviously, when we speak to people at Supermums, is, make this your niche. Like you within Salesforce, you have to have a niche of where you want to go. Obviously, this is where there is a lot of work and a lot of development and a lot of attention. Every AE is selling Agentforce at the moment. So, and it does require that level of investment and time. So if you're interested in learning Agentforce, and particularly Data Cloud, we've got our Data Cloud course. We have done Agentforce enablement sessions in partnership with Salesforce. We can look to do another one of those. We had 150 sign up for the last one, so there is that appetite for it. But as Chris mentioned, this product is changing all the time. So being in the loop and being in the mix is really incredibly important to kind of go, right, yeah, actually, this is where I want to be, is at the forefront of AI. Supermums is here to carry you on that journey and obviously to help place you in job role opportunities that come up as well. So thank you again. I know we're on time. Thank you, Chris and Amina, for taking time out of your day. Obviously, people can get in touch with you directly via LinkedIn. As I mentioned, we're representing Abhinav for candidates and as a candidate for job opportunities. So hopefully this creates the next opportunity that'll be exciting. You've got such an extensive career, Abhinav, as well. I'm really impressed. I think it's longer than mine. I mean, you must have been here from day one in terms of everything you've seen and where we've gone with technology. So I'd love to have a coffee with you. I'd love to hear all about your stories and your journey. But thank you everyone for joining. You've got their contact details in the chat. Please do continue any conversations that you want. And it's been lovely to have you all here today. I will send it out in replay probably tomorrow or end of the day today, and you can rewatch the session at any points. But thank you again all for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you again. Speak to you soon. Have a lovely afternoon.